Good morning, students. So let us move for this academic session. So in the Zoology, you will have overall 12 chapters. So among this, the first chapter is the living world, right? And it is one of this easiest chapter, and it's one of the common chapter. And of course, you know about this information which is given here already. And since it is a higher secondary sections, few more information here added here, right? So a lot of very interesting information is there inside, and we can go through and let us see what are this information is given for us to learn, right? Shall we go through? Fine. So first of all, I would like to say regarding this mark allotment. So totally you will have the 600 marks. Among this, biology 100 marks, and biobotany 50 marks, biozoology 15 marks, right? So overall 100 marks. Among this, 35 marks goes to theory from each subject. So 35 plus 35, 70 marks, right? For each subject, practical 15 marks. So biobotany practical 15 marks and biozoology practical 15 marks, right? So overall 30 marks. So for practical, right? So overall you will get 100 marks. Fine. Okay, let us go for this question pattern. So in the higher secondary session, you have to follow one different question pattern. Here you will get these 4 different types of questions, right? Which includes 1 mark questions, 2 mark questions, 3 mark questions, as well as 5 mark questions, right? So as I said already, you will appear this theory exam for 35 marks, right? Among this, you will get 8 one words and 4 2 mark questions. So it carries 8 marks, and 3 3 mark questions, it goes to 9 marks, and you will get 2 5 mark questions, right? So it gets 10 marks. So overall, it will be 35 marks, right? Okay. Hope you understood about your new pattern of questions as well as this, mark allotment, right? So we all work together, you and the teachers and the parents and the management, we all work together to succeed this, right? Shall we begin our classes? Okay. So you will have 13 chapters, right? Overall 12 chapters is there. Among these, the first chapter is the living world. So just I will give some introductions and regarding this living world. Since it is new beginning, I would like to start from this new chapter, first chapter, right? And it is regarding common about one general topic only. It is about this living world, right? So you may have learned about this living world from the lower classes onwards. You may learn about this living world as is, our living world consists of living things, non-living things, right? Biotic things, so that we can substitute the word here as biotic things and abiotic things. Okay. So since it is a higher secondary section, you may have to learn little elaborately about this living world, right? Let us go inside and let us see what our instruction or details they have given inside. Fine. Shall we? Okay. This living world, of course, the world we are living is rich of biodiversity. So do you understand the word biodiversity? Biodiversity in the sense it is full of plants and animals and microorganisms, etc., 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 right? And of course, they estimate there is 8.7 million of species of organisms have been estimated to exist on the earth. 8.7 million of species, right? So I have displayed here one of this terrestrial ecosystem. So here they said, even though, of course, when we look into this terrestrial ecosystem, we can understand it is full of plants and animals, right? But even though they said 86% of these land organisms, I mean terrestrial organisms, yet to be identified, which means only 14% of this terrestrial organisms only we have identified and recognized, which means we have identified that animal and we have named the animal and we have given the proper classification of this animal. Understand this point? Rest 86% of these organisms yet to be identified, which means we do not know at all. We have to give the classification. We have to find it out. We have to give the names for this. Is it clear? Okay. And the next one is, it is one of this, ocean ecosystem, right? So aquatic ecosystem, we can say. So here also they said, so whatever we have found already is only 9%. So whatever organisms which we have found already, aquatic organisms, so we know a lot of aquatic organisms, right? So we have given the names for a lot of aquatic organisms. But even though overall they said it is only 9% of these organisms when we compare whatever exists already, right? So rest 91% we have yet to be identified. Only 9% only we identify. Could you differentiate? 91% we have to find it again. It's there, but we have not given the names. We have not given the classification. Did you get me? So such a vast biodiversity is there in this world, in this universe, right? Okay. So about this diversity only we are going to discuss something. We are going to discuss about this. Okay, shall we go on? Fine. So in today's class, what are the things we have to supposed to discuss, right? The first thing is diversity in the living world. And the second thing, history of classification. Diversity in the living world. What do you mean the word diversity? Of course, variation, right? Diversity means variations. So as is shown in these two pictures which we have seen already, explains there is lot of millions of species is available in this world, right? So about this some informations we are going to discuss. And the second thing, how can we classify these organisms? Fine. Let us go for the first one. Diversity in the world. Everywhere there is organisms. Everywhere throughout these nations, everywhere there is organisms. Different varieties of organisms are available. So this picture I displayed here, it is polar ice caps. Even there is the temperature is very low, but even though there is this, organisms could survive there. They have its own adaptations to survive there, right? So in the polar ice caps also the organisms can survive. Meanwhile, look at the second picture. Even in the volcanic hot springs also the organisms can survive. Volcanic hot springs, in the springs also, in that area also the organisms could survive. So totally different environment we could see here. So the organisms could survive in this polar ice caps. Meanwhile, it can survive in this volcanic hot springs also, right? I could give one more example. Here the organisms could survive in this tropical rainforest. Organisms are surviving in this tropical rainforest. But just opposite situation is, just let us see. It is one of this desert. The organisms, various organisms could survive in the desert also, right? So there is two entirely different climatic conditions. But everywhere the organisms could survive with its own adaptation. Understand? So everywhere there is organisms, everywhere, right? So how can we classify these organisms, right? So before we go for this classification, just we can see, we can go for these two, terms what we have to learn related to this chapter, right? Let us see. Okay, so listen here. Here I displayed one of this library, right? Have you go to library? Of course, every may go to library, right? Have you seen this library, how these books are arranged or categorized? So when we go to the library, there is different departments will be there, right? So in every department wise, the books will be categorized and arranged neatly, right? So there's a department wise, journals in one side, magazines in one side, science books, historical books, every as per the department wise, the books will be arranged or categorized, right? So when these persons go inside, they can go to the particular department sharply, and whatever collection of books they need, they can find it out easily and they can refer it, right? So it is one of the easy arrangement. If it is categorized in that manner, the people can identify the book easily, right? The same, one more example I could give, that is, it's one of the supermarket. Of course, everyone may gone to the supermarket, right? So now it is a lot of supermarket is available. When we go to supermarket, as the same like library, their books are categorized, but here the things are categorized, right? So every department wise, floor wise, the things will be categorized and arranged perfectly, right? So when the customers goes inside, whatever things they need, first of all they go to the department. For example, if they need, in a grocery section, they will go to the grocery department, or if they need this stationery items, they go to the stationery departments, or if they need this vessels, they may go to the vessels department, right? So they go to the particular department and they search whatever collections they need, and whatever they need, they will collect it back. So this is one of the good arrangement. So it will help this customers to collect it easily, identify the things easily, right? The same method only we are going to follow in this living world also. So previously only we explained there is a lot of millions of species is available in the world. It may be from one microorganisms to one blue whale, right? So from the microorganisms, one virus to one blue whale, right? So how can we identify, how can we categorize these organisms, right? So there is one separate method we have to follow, like this library or like this supermarket. Then we can, if we want to discuss about one of these organisms, we can go to the for the first particular classification, and we can go about this particular organisms and we can refer it. Understand? Let us see. So here, as I said, we are supposed to go about the two terms. So the one of the term is ecosystem. Hope you may hear this word already, ecosystem. And of course, what do you mean ecosystem? Ecosystem is a community of biotic and abiotic factors and their relationships, which is given, this ecosystem definition is given by the person A.G. Tansley in the year 1935, right? So what do you mean ecosystem? It's a community. So if there is one community, surely there will be the living as well as the non-living substances, right? So what do you mean living? Of course, there is a lot of living things and there is a lot of non-living things, right? Of course, the temperature or this, pH level or the climatic conditions, the air, water, these are all these abiotic things. Surely we know biotic things, living things, surely it is depending these non-living things for its survival. Am I right? So there is a relationship. That's why it is made in the relationship. So it is given by the person A.J. Tansley for the definition of this ecosystem. Fine. And next one, biodiversity. As we said, biodiversity. What do you mean biodiversity? So the presence of large number of species in a particular ecosystem. In one particular ecosystem, there is a large number of species is available. That is, we can say one biodiversity. For example, of course, you could also say, you may learn in the lower classes, pond ecosystem, desert ecosystem, terrestrial ecosystem, aquatic ecosystem. It's one of the ecosystem. For example, if you take one aquatic ecosystem, it consists of large number of species, thousands of millions of species may available in this aquatic region alone. So that we can say as one biodiversity. Why it is a word? It is given as diversity because there is variety. Diversity in the sense there is a lot of variety. That's why this it is bio. Bio in the sense living things, diversity in the sense variation. So it is known as biodiversity. Is it clear? Fine. And now let us go for this history of classification. As I said, even in one library or after all one in a supermarket, they need one proper classification or arrangement or category, right? So unless they arrange everything or categorize everything in a proper level, the customer cannot identify even in one supermarket, right? So as we said already, in our living, in our world, in our university, there is millions of species is available. So unless we give one proper arrangement, one classification, the arrangement word or categorize, that word only here we are substituting one as new word, that is a classification. So don't get confused if we say as a classification, nothing else. Classification is just like categorizing, right? So here also in this living world also, since there is millions of species is available, we are going to give one classification, one arrangement, one category. Understand? And various scientists has evolved and they have given their own ideas to classify these organisms, right? Let us see few about this. Fine? Okay. So in the earliest method, I have displayed here as one of the method is early method. So in the earliest method, in a simple way they have classified. How do they classify? Beneficial organisms as well as harmful organisms. So only two groups. Among these millions of organisms, just they have classified only in two groups, beneficial organisms and harmful organisms. Is it clear? Okay. And again, when this day is passed, they given another one classification system, because if we categorize only in two methods, beneficial and the harmful, the number of species will be more and more. Am I right? That's why again few more classification again they are giving. So how could they have given here? Domestic animals, wild animals. So the organisms which mingle among these humans, they have categorized as domestic animals. The organisms which is living in this in a forest area, they said wild animals. Creeping, of course we know creeping animals, flying animals, right? And sea animals. So likewise, as per the habitat where it is living, they have classified the organisms as 5. It is one of the ancient methods, right? And let us go for this other methods, how they classified. Another one of the method is, which is given by the person Aristotle. Aristotle, his life duration is 384 to 322 BC. Okay, let us see how he has classified these organisms. Actually, Aristotle, and he has given this classification in his one of this book known as History of Animals, right? History of Animals. In this book, he has classified the organisms, right? So first of all, he has classified organisms as 3, right? So in how could he has classified? And the terrestrial organisms he has classified as walking, listen, and flying. Aerial organisms he has classified as flying organisms, and aquatic organisms he has classified as swimming organisms. So these classification he has given as per the locomotion, right? So as per locomotion, especially those who are living in the terrestrial region used to walk, and the organisms those who are living in this aerial air used to fly, and the organisms which is living in the aquatic regions used to swim. So based on this locomotionary habitat nature, he has classified into 3 as walking, flying and swimming, or we could say terrestrial, aerial and aquatic, right? And one more classification also he has given as per the presence or absence of red blood cells. Red blood cells, of course we know human blood we consider of 3 types of cells, RBC, WBC as well as platelets, right? So among this, and as per this presence of this RBC cells, he has classified the organisms into 2 categories. That is, one of this category is anema, another one is anema. So anema means we can say the presence of red blood cells. Anema, absence of red blood cells. So the organisms those who consist of RBC cell is known as anema, and the organisms, those who do not have this RBC cells are considered as anema. So as per this presence or absence of these RBC cells, the organisms are categorized into two, as anema as well as anema. Is it clear? But there is a lot of limitation about this Aristotle classification. So some limitations or suggestions they said about this classification of this Aristotle. Let us see what are the things, what are the things they explain about his classification method, right? The first one. So this is one of the Aristotle classification method, and as we said, Aristotle has classified the organisms which is living in the aquatic region as a swimming, right? And the organisms which is living on terrestrial is walking, right? Here one of the example we have described. Do you know about this frog, right? Of course you know about the frog. So the frog, larval stage of this frog is known as tadpoles. Sure you know about it, right? Tadpoles. So these tadpoles, actually frog is one of this amphibian, right? It used to live inside this water as well as on the land. So the frog used to lay the eggs inside the water. So this egg will hatch out as a tadpole larva. So tadpole larva has gills and it appear like a fishes. Am I right? So it used to survive inside this water like a fishes. But during this metamorphosis, during its life cycle, it will mature, and the mature frog used to live on the land, right? Here this frog has two habitats. In its larval stage it is living inside this aquatic region. In its adult stage it is living on the terrestrial region, right? Then what category we can give for this frog, whether it is aquatic or terrestrial? So there is a confusion, understand? So this is one of this limitation they said regarding this classification of Aristotle, right? And one more example we can see, that is, this is here I had described about few birds which could not fly. Example we could say, penguin, ostrich, kiwi, etc., right? So these birds could not fly. So what he already we have seen the classification of Aristotle. There what he explained, the organisms could fly is aerial animals, right? The birds, most of these birds he said, they whatever can fly, it is as aerial animals, and it is mode of locomotion is flying, right? But here these are all birds. Whatever I displayed here is birds, but it could not fly, right? It could not fly. It's almost like terrestrial. It's a birds. Physiologically it is a birds. Anatomically it is a birds, but it could not fly. So in what category we can give, whether it's a birds or terrestrial animals, right? So such as issues or limitations they have raised regarding this classification of Aristotle, right? But even though they have followed this Aristotle classification around 2000 years, more than 2000 years they said, till this year 1700, till 1700 they followed. Around 2000 years they have followed this Aristotle classification only. Then afterwards they started to give some more modification in this classification of Aristotle, right? Okay, let us see, and who are the persons they have given this, they have modified this Aristotle classification system. Fine. That is, the next person is Theophratus. Actually he is the student of Aristotle. Okay, and he worked with this actual plants, and his name also actually says father of botany, right? So he has carried his study of this Aristotle again, right? And after Theophratus period, the person has known as John Ray. He has given one new terms for the classification system, that is species. So what he said is species is a unit of taxonomy. Taxonomy means the term which is used to the classification of organism. That the term is known as taxonomy. Here he introduced one word, that is species. Species is a unit. Why he said the unit? Because when we give one classification system for whatever organisms, finally we can able to identify the exact organisms with the species name only. Understand? For example, Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens is a scientific name for human beings. But Homo erectus is also there. But Homo erectus is not human being. It's a previous. There is apes, we can say. But Homo sapiens, human beings. So when we say sapiens, sapiens is a species name. When we say sapiens only, we can identify the exact person. Do you get me? Okay, so that's what he said. Species is a unit of this taxonomy. Okay, and again he has introduced one, published the book also. The book is Methodus Plantarum Nova in the year 1682. Methodus Plantarum Nova. Fine. And after his period, one of this very familiar and one of this very famous, evolutionist. His name is Carolus Linnaeus. He is one of the very familiar person. Of course, everyone may knows about him, and he is known as father of modern taxonomy. Okay, and he has given this nomenclature method, because the permanent, what do you mean nomenclature? The permanent name will be given, scientific name will be given for each and every organisms, every species, right? So it will be universal. It will be universal name in everywhere, in the universally every country, the same name will be followed. That is the nomenclature method. Okay, and the next one, the numerical taxonomy, also which is given by him, that is in the 1950, the numerical taxonomical method. Then in the year of phylogenetic classification, the phylogenetic classification is given by the person is a cladistic. Cladistic phylogenetic classification means as per the origin of the species, the organisms must be classified. Origin, what do you mean origin? First the microorganisms may evolve, then sponges may evolve, then afterwards, porifera, coelenterata, again, hydra. So one grade by grade only the organisms are originated or evolved in the world, right? So as per that, this organisms may be classified. That plan is given by, that idea is given by the person cladistics. That is known as phylogenetic classification. Okay, as per this cladistic method, Ernst Haeckel has given this cladogram diagram with this, it is otherwise known as a tree diagram, tree chart, right? So what is the speciality of this one? Here, when we are in lower classes, our teachers may ask used to frame, family tree. What do you mean? Have you pasted family tree? So at the bottom, our grandmas will be there, grandparents will be there, then our parents will be there as a branch, and in this sub branch, our photos we used to paste, right? So who is the beginner? Our grandparents. Then from the grandparents who came, our parents came. From our parents who came, we came, right? So such a likewise one by one, like a tree method, phylogenetic tree they used to say it is, right? Which is given by, that is that tree diagram is known as cladogram, right? That method is introduced by the person Ernst Haeckel, right? So these are all those methods they have given for the classification of these organisms, right? And hope we can conclude today's topic by this, and hope you will all go through this video and watch everything. Whatever you could learn, you can get from this video and learn it. And maybe when we meet in the next class, we will ask some, when we ask, you be ready to answer at least in the mind, right? Okay, so I could give some assignments. Please complete this assignment before we meet in the next class, right? Let us go. So define ecosystem. One definition already I have given that you learn. Define biodiversity definition also I have given that you could learn. Then define cladogram also you can learn. And history of classification. So now history of classification one schedule I have given, right? From Aristotle onwards. And before Aristotle also, any earliest period also there. That even you can go through this video. Those who don't have the textbook, you can go through this video, and whatever you could cover, you cover, right? So please do it. Well, stay home, stay safe, pray well, and do well. Fine. Thank you.